It was supposed to be the most forgettable kind of night, the kind where you're too tired to cook, too drained to think, and too numb to notice anything beyond the grocery list in your hand. I had worked a long week at Hartley Dynamics, the kind of week where deadlines stack on top of each other like bricks. By the time I stepped into the quiet supermarket, it felt like I was drifting through a dream more than a store. The place was nearly empty, the overhead lights humming softly. The cool air smelled faintly of citrus and detergent. I pushed my cart slowly down the dairy aisle, just wanting almond milk and some peace. And then it happened. I reached for the last carton, and another hand touched it at the exact same moment. Not just touched it, but brushed over my fingers. Her hand was warm, soft, delicate but steady. There was something familiar about that touch, something that sent a small jolt through my tired brain. I looked up, expecting some stranger from the neighborhood. Instead, the world stopped. My CEO, Elena Hartley, stood in front of me. But not the Elena everyone at work feared, the sharp-tongued genius with tailored suits, high heels that clicked like punctuation marks, and a stare that could cut through steel. No. This Elena looked different. Her hair, normally tied in a sleek twist, fell in loose waves over her shoulders. She wore a simple hoodie and jeans, her makeup faint, her expression softer and strangely exposed. She looked human. Younger. Like the version of herself she worked hard to bury during office hours. For a second, we just stared at each other, my fingers still half resting against hers. She swallowed hard, glanced around as if making sure no one else was watching, then stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth rolling off her body. Close enough that her perfume, subtle and comforting like vanilla and cedarwood, wrapped around me. Her voice was barely a whisper, trembling in a way I had never heard before. "Be my boyfriend, please. Just for tonight. Or I might lose everything." Her breath brushed my ear when she said it. My heart slammed against my ribs. The words hit me wrong. So wrong. I froze, panic spreading through my chest like ice. My mind twisted her meaning instantly into something terrifying: be my boyfriend, or lose your job. My stomach dropped. Cold sweat prickled the back of my neck. I stepped back slightly, my voice cracking as I tried to form a question. Elena's eyes widened when she saw the fear in mine. And for the first time since I met her, the strong, composed CEO didn't look powerful at all. She looked horrified, at herself. I didn't mean it like that," she blurted, voice shaking. "I'm sorry. I said it wrong." Her shoulders slumped, the facade slipping again. She looked lost. Vulnerable. Maybe even scared. The air between us became thick with unspoken emotion, confusion, tension, something else I couldn't name yet. That moment, that misunderstanding, became the spark that would change everything. For a moment after her apology, the supermarket felt unbearably silent, like the world was holding its breath, waiting to see what I'd do next. Elena stood there with that shaken expression, her fingers still hovering near the almond milk as if she had forgotten why she even came down this aisle. "I didn't mean to scare you," she murmured, eyes dropping to the floor. Can we talk? Somewhere private?" I hesitated. Every piece of workplace etiquette screamed "don't do this," but something in her voice, that thin, fragile thread holding her together, made me nod. Outside, the cool night air brushed against my face. The parking lot was quiet, lit by the pale glow of street lamps. Elena walked ahead slowly, almost uncertainly, toward a sleek black car that definitely didn't belong in a place like this. She unlocked it, and the soft interior lights revealed a space that looked more like a sanctuary than a vehicle, clean, warm, smelling faintly of cedar, the same scent that clung to her. "Please," she said softly. "Sit with me." The way she asked, it wasn't a command from a boss. It was a plea from a human being who had run out of people to trust. I slid into the passenger seat, keeping a respectful distance. She sat quietly for a long moment, fingers wrapped around the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned pale. Rain began to fall, tapping softly against the windshield, gentle, rhythmic, almost comforting. She finally spoke. "I didn't lie," she whispered. "I really am afraid of losing everything." Her voice shook, not dramatically, just enough to reveal the cracks she hid at work. She kept her eyes forward as she explained. The board. The pressure. The constant scrutiny because she was the youngest CEO the company had ever had. They think I'm too young. Too driven. Too unstable. She let out a dry, humorless laugh. A few of them even say I don't have a life outside work, like that makes me unfit to lead. Her grip tightened. I noticed the slightest tremble in her fingers. And now, she continued, one of the executives is trying to sabotage me. He's spreading rumors I can't maintain a normal relationship. That I'm incapable of forming personal connections. Her breath hitched. And the board is starting to believe it. I felt something twist in my chest, not pity, but a deep, aching sense of empathy. I panicked when I saw you, she said. You're one of the few people at the company who treats me like a person. Not a title. She turned toward me, eyes glossy but steady. So I thought, maybe you could help me. Just pretend. Just for one night. Her voice softened even more. But I swear on my career, on everything I am, your job is safe. I would never threaten you. I'm sorry you even felt that. The sincerity in her eyes knocked the breath out of me. Somewhere between the rain's quiet rhythm and the trembling honesty in her voice, the fear I'd felt earlier began to dissolve. The tension between us shifted into something gentler, a fragile connection built on vulnerability, not authority. I'll help, I said quietly. But only if you're okay. Not because you're my CEO. She exhaled, relief softening her shoulders. For the first time, she looked grateful. And in the warm, rain-soaked silence of that car, the first real spark of trust was born. The gala was already in full swing when we pulled up in front of the downtown hotel. Light spilled from the entrance like liquid gold, and elegant guests moved in and out with the confident ease of people used to being admired. The moment Elena stepped out of the car, I understood why she needed someone beside her. She looked flawless, powerful, untouchable, and yet, I could still see the faint uncertainty behind her eyes. She smoothed her dress, a deep navy that made her look even more composed than usual, and then turned toward me. Remember, she whispered, you're here with me. Just, be natural. Easy for her to say. Her fingers brushed my sleeve as we walked toward the entrance. It wasn't a deliberate gesture at first, it felt more like she needed the reassurance that I was actually there. But even that small touch sent a subtle warmth up my arm, the kind that lingered longer than it should have. The moment we entered the ballroom, everything changed. Crystal chandeliers glowed overhead. Soft jazz drifted through the air. People looked at us, or rather, at her, with expressions that ranged from admiration to thinly masked envy. Elena's posture straightened instantly, the CEO mask slid back into place. Yet her hand hesitated before resting lightly on my arm. A soft, testing touch. Not possessive. Not authoritative. Just, seeking steadiness. I let my arm relax, allowing her to hold on if she needed to. As we moved through the crowd, guests greeted her with bright smiles and sharper questions. Elena, you didn't mention you were bringing someone tonight. Oh. And who's this handsome man beside you? Finally decided to take a night off from work. Each comment chipped away at her composure, even though she answered them all gracefully. I could feel her breath slow whenever someone asked something probing, and once or twice her fingers pressed slightly tighter against my sleeve, a silent request for grounding. To help her, I leaned in now and then, pretending to whisper something supportive. In truth, I didn't say anything at all, I just let the closeness do the work, letting my presence tell the room, she's not alone. The proximity created a quiet electricity between us. Her perfume, warm vanilla and cedar, surrounded me more strongly in the crowded room. Every time she angled her head to speak near my ear, the faint brush of her hair grazed my cheek. At one point, during a pause in conversation, her hand slipped into mine beneath the table we stood beside. It was a small movement, hidden from the crowd, but intimate in a quiet, unspoken way. Her palm felt soft, slightly cool, like she'd been holding on to her composure too tightly. I didn't squeeze her hand, I simply let her hold it. And something in her shoulders relaxed, just a fraction. As the night went on, her confidence grew. She navigated conversations with ease, but every so often she glanced at me, quick looks filled with gratitude, relief, maybe even something deeper. Not romantic yet, but undeniably personal. Then a board member approached with the kind of smug smile that made my chest tighten in protective instinct. "Elena," he said smoothly, "you never mentioned you were dating one of your employees." How intriguing. Her grip on my hand tightened just enough for me to feel the tremor she didn't show on her face. Without thinking, I shifted closer, a subtle gesture, but one that shielded her from his invasive curiosity. She blinked at the movement, surprised, then softened slightly. For the rest of the night, she stayed close, not because the act required it, but because something about being near me seemed to calm her. We weren't a couple. Not even close. But the distance between us, the emotional one, had begun to shrink. And we both felt it. When the gala finally ended, the applause from the closing speech still lingered faintly in the halls as Elena and I made our way back to her office. She walked quickly, heels clicking in a sharp rhythm that didn't quite match the quiet exhaustion in her shoulders. The contrast struck me, the public version of her still performing out of habit, even when the audience was gone. The building was nearly empty when we stepped inside. Dim lights lined the hallway, casting long shadows, and the air felt still, almost peaceful. Elena unlocked her office, pushed open the glass door, and exhaled deeply, the kind of breath you release only when you're finally safe from the world. Inside, her office felt different at night. Softer. Warmer. The city lights outside spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows like distant stars, reflecting in the polished surfaces. She set her clutch on the desk, then reached up and slowly removed her earrings, letting them drop gently onto the polished wood. I had never seen her do something so simple in front of me. Something so human. "Thank you," she said quietly, not turning around yet. "For tonight. You held it together better than some executives I've hired." I smiled faintly, but she didn't see it. She was still staring out the window, arms wrapped lightly around herself as if only now noticing the cold air. "You okay?" I asked, stepping inside but keeping my voice low. She nodded, but the movement was too stiff, too hesitant. "It's just, exhausting," she murmured. "Pretending I'm always fine. Pretending I'm untouchable." She finally turned to face me. Without the gala lights, without an audience, she looked different, softer in the jaw, quieter in the eyes, as if her real self had finally stepped out from behind the steel facade. I took a seat on the small gray couch near the window. She hesitated for a heartbeat before walking over and sitting beside me, not too close, but closer than she normally allowed anyone. "Today could have gone terribly," she said, her hands twisting in her lap. "But you made me feel like I wasn't alone in that room." "That's what partners do," I replied before I even thought about it. She blinked, surprised by the word. "Partners," she repeated softly, almost tasting it. "We're not, I know," I cut in gently. "I didn't mean it like a relationship. I meant, support. Someone who stands beside you." She looked down at our hands resting on our knees, not touching, just close enough that a single movement could bridge the space. "I don't have many people like that," she whispered. Something in my chest tightened, not pity, but a deep awareness of her loneliness, the kind she hid behind power. "You've been carrying everything alone for a long time," I said. She nodded slowly, eyes glistening but not tears, more like unspoken truths rising to the surface. Sometimes I forget what it feels like to just talk to someone honestly. Her shoulder brushed mine, a small, accidental touch. But neither of us moved away. The room felt warmer suddenly. Quieter. More intimate, but in a fragile, human way rather than romantic. We sat like that for a long moment, sharing the silence. Not pretending. Not performing. Just being two people who saw each other clearly for the first time. Then she turned her head slightly, and our eyes met, a soft, lingering look that held more questions than answers. Not a request. Not pressure. Just an unspoken acknowledgement of the connection forming between us. We didn't kiss. We didn't touch beyond that brief brush of shoulders. But the moment still shifted something. The act was over. The walls were down. And for the first time, the possibility of something real flickered between us. The following week began with a kind of quiet storm. It started Monday morning, when I walked into the office and felt the shift instantly, the sideways glances, the murmurs that stopped the moment I passed, the forced smiles that left a faint sting of discomfort in the air. Hartley Dynamics was always busy, always buzzing, but today the energy felt heavier. Dense with speculation. By noon, the truth hit me, someone had leaked what they saw at the gala. Not the full story, just enough to ignite whispers. Elena brought him. He stayed by her all night. She never brings anyone. You think they're. It's unprofessional if they are. None of it was said directly to me, of course. But I heard enough fragments to understand exactly how quickly a harmless, one-night act had spiraled into office-wide gossip. By the time Elena called me into her office, my chest felt tight with dread. She stood by the window, her arms crossed loosely, a protective stance that didn't suit her usual commanding presence. Sunlight slanted across her face, highlighting the subtle tension in her jaw. When she turned, her expression wasn't stern, but worried. "Close the door," she said softly. I did, feeling the weight of 100 unasked questions pressing against my shoulders. She walked closer, her heels tapping gently against the polished floor, and lowered her voice. "I'm guessing you've heard the rumors." I nodded. "Yeah." Her eyes softened with something like guilt. "This wasn't supposed to happen. I promised you wouldn't get dragged into my mess." "It's okay," I said. But it wasn't. The sudden attention felt like wearing someone else's skin, unfamiliar, uncomfortable, too exposed. She heard the hesitation in my voice. "It's not okay," she insisted quietly. "They should be talking about my work ethic, not making assumptions about your personal life." She took a slow breath. Then another. "Tell me honestly," she said, stepping closer. "Do you regret helping me?" The way she asked, gently, almost afraid of the answer, pulled something deep in me. Her vulnerability wasn't dramatic, it was quiet, honest, and revealed only to me. It made the room feel smaller, warmer, like we were suspended in a moment that somehow mattered more than either of us expected. "No," I said, meeting her eyes. "I don't regret it. I just don't know where I stand with all of this." Her expression softened, then tightened again with a new kind of worry. "I don't know where I stand either," she admitted. "I've spent years building walls to protect my work, my reputation. And then you walked into a supermarket aisle and everything shifted." A faint smile tugged at her lips, tired, but real. "I'm not used to depending on someone," she said. "Especially not like this." Her hand reached out, hesitated, then lightly touched my forearm, a cautious, almost apologetic gesture. The warmth of her fingers lingered through the fabric, soft but meaningful. "I'm sorry for the pressure this put on you," she whispered. I didn't pull away. "I'm not running," I replied. Her eyes flickered with something, gratitude, relief, maybe a hint of something deeper she wasn't ready to name. Silence settled between us, gentle but charged. Then she stepped back slightly, her composure returning. We need to stay distant at the office for now, she said, though her voice lacked conviction. Just until things cool down. It was the responsible thing to say. It was the smart thing to do. So why did it feel like a door quietly closing between us? Because for the first time since that night, we were both aware, this wasn't just an act anymore. Not for her. Not for me. And the space we had to create, hurt more than it should have. Keeping our distance sounded simple in theory. In reality, it felt like trying to stand still during an earthquake. For the next few days, Elena and I barely spoke unless it was strictly work-related. Emails replaced conversations. Formal phrases replaced the quiet warmth we had begun to share. She avoided looking at me during meetings, and I pretended not to notice the subtle tension in her posture whenever I entered the room. The entire week felt like walking with a stone lodged behind my ribs. By Friday, the strain had grown unbearable. The board had called an emergency meeting. Rumors about her lack of professionalism, fueled by the same man who tried to sabotage her before, had reached a dangerous peak. When the meeting ended, I saw her exit the conference room with her shoulders stiff, her steps too quick, as if she were trying to outwalk the weight crushing her. That was the moment I realized, she wasn't just stressed. She was breaking. I found her outside the building 15 minutes later. It had just started raining, not thunderous, just a soft, steady drizzle that blurred the city lights into hazy gold. She stood beneath the awning, arms wrapped around herself, staring out at the street with an expression that stole the breath from my lungs. Not the CEO. Not the untouchable leader. Just a young woman pushed to her limit. Elena, I said softly. She didn't turn immediately. When she finally did, her eyes glistened, not tears yet, but dangerously close. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. People are already talking. I don't care what they say. You should, she said sharply, though her voice cracked. I promised I wouldn't drag you down with me, and yet here we are. Rain tapped against the pavement rhythmically, the soft patter filling the silence between us. You didn't drag me anywhere, I said. I chose to help you. That's the problem, she whispered. I didn't want you to feel obligated. I didn't want you to care. Her voice broke on the last word. A tiny fracture. A tiny reveal. I stepped closer, rain mist brushing my shirt as I moved out from beneath the awning. Elena, I said gently, I care because I care. Not because you're my boss. Her breath hitched, a soft, shaky sound that cut deeper than any confession. You don't understand, she murmured, finally turning toward me fully. If the board believes these rumors, I could lose the company. Everything I've worked for. And I can't fight it alone this time. I'm tired. Her voice dropped. I'm so tired. Before I could think, I reached out, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and brushed my fingers against her hand. Just a soft, grounding touch. She stared at our hands as if the gesture itself was something fragile. Something she had forgotten she was allowed to feel. I miss talking to you, she admitted quietly. I miss, not feeling alone. Her honesty hit me like a wave, gentle, overwhelming, warm. I'm here, I said simply. You don't have to pretend with me. For a moment, she didn't move. Then, as if exhaustion finally outweighed fear, she stepped forward and let her forehead rest lightly against my shoulder. Not a romantic gesture, just a human one. A silent surrender to vulnerability. I didn't hold her tightly. I didn't overstep. I only placed a steady hand on her back, offering warmth in the cold rain. A long, trembling breath escaped her. This wasn't supposed to become real, she whispered. Maybe real is what we needed, I answered quietly. And as the rain fell softly around us, we both knew, something had changed forever. Irreversibly. Quietly. Undeniably. Emotional goal, deliver a warm, cinematic resolution where both characters let down their walls and choose each other honestly, not through pressure, not through power, but through vulnerability and mutual respect. By the time I reach the rooftop, the sky is fading into a soft orange-purple haze, the kind of evening where the city feels quieter, like it's exhaling after a long day. The air is cool against my skin, and the hum of distant traffic rises like a steady heartbeat. And there she is, Evelyn, standing near the edge, her blazer off, hair down, fingers gripping the railing like she's holding herself steady. She looks nothing like the CEO who commands rooms. Right now, she looks like a woman trying to decide whether to let herself be human. When she hears me, she doesn't turn immediately. "You shouldn't be here," she says, her voice calm but trembling faintly at the edges. I step closer, not too close, just enough that she can feel I'm here if she wants to reach for me. Maybe. But neither should you. Running isn't really your style. That finally makes her face me. Her eyes are tired, softer than I've ever seen. "I pushed you too far," she whispers. "The supermarket, the way I worded things, it wasn't fair to you. It wasn't who I want to be." There's something fragile about her in this moment, something honest. She swallows hard. "I didn't want to lose you," she admits quietly. "Not as an employee. Not as someone who makes me feel less alone." Her vulnerability hits deep. Not because she's powerful, but because she's finally letting herself be small. I move a little closer, slow and deliberate, letting her see every step, giving her time to pull away if she wants. "Evelyn. I didn't stay because of the job," I say gently. "I stayed because I see you. All the confidence, all the cracks underneath. All of it." Her breath catches, one of those tiny, involuntary reactions she would normally hide. "And I don't want anything from you," I continue. "Not status. Not favors. Just honesty. Whatever you actually feel. Not what you think you're supposed to say to stay in control." She looks down at her hands, and when she speaks, her voice is barely more than air. "I'm afraid," she confesses. "Of choosing someone I can't control. Of being vulnerable with someone younger. Of wanting something that makes no logical sense." I take one more small step, closing the last bit of emotional distance. "Then don't make it logical," I whisper. "Make it honest." Her eyes lift slowly, meeting mine with a raw openness I've never seen in her. She doesn't move toward me, but she doesn't move away either. Instead, she simply asks, voice unsteady, "What do you want from me, right now?" I smile, not bold, not teasing, just grounded. "A chance," I say. "A real one. No deals. No threats. No hiding behind titles." A long silence follows, soft, heavy, meaningful. Then, step by step, she closes the distance between us until she's standing close enough for her breath to warm the air near my collarbone. She reaches up, hesitates, and finally lets her fingers graze mine, light, trembling, deliberate. "Then stay," she whispers. "Not because you have to, but because you want to." I gently intertwine my fingers with hers, brushing my thumb over the back of her hand. "I'm here," I say. "And I'm not going anywhere." She exhales, a shaky, relieved breath, and rests her forehead lightly against my chest. Not a kiss, not a dramatic gesture. Just closeness. Just truth. And for the first time since the story began, the power dynamic disappears. There is only two people, choosing each other, freely.